Henshin. It's morphin' time! Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to the first of many videos on the Complete Selection Modification Decadriver version 2. Specifically, this is going to be the version 2 Decadriver plus the K-Touch. And in terms of the overall video schedule, this is the first video. There will be a second video covering the wonderful card set extra, and then there'll be a third video comparing the 2.0 Decadriver to the 1.0, as well as using some cards from the Complete Selection Modification D end. So if you're looking for Decade stuff, I hope to answer every single question possible, but if I miss anything, let me know in the comments. Also be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the notification bell so you don't miss out on a single video coming up. Now I do have the USA release of this, which we kind of discussed that there was some cards that were originally said to not be included that are, and I went over that in an unboxing video, which I already have uploaded, so check that out if you haven't. In terms of packaging, the box is basically the same as what we've seen. It does still have the old Bandai logo because this is before the Bandai Namco merger. But the front of the box, we have Decade holding his final attack ride card. And on the back, we have Decade Complete holding the K-Touch, which I think is very appropriate. Now, there is a bundle you could get that was just the Decadriver 2.0 without the K-Touch. But honestly, why would you do that? I think at this point, if you're going to be buying a Complete Selection belt, you should get a complete version. Along the top, we got some logos of Kuga, Agito, Ruki, Faiz, Blade, Hibiki, Kabuto, Deno, Kiva, Decade. So that's pretty cool. And on the bottom, you can see the wonderful little label that was slapped on by the North American distributors, Bluefin and Bandai Namco Group, which they'll eventually change that logo. But yeah, pretty much the box is the same as the Japanese release. You know, here's a couple picture comparisons of the bottom. You can see the top is pretty much the same. And yeah, it's essentially the same box otherwise, which is nice to see that there's more of a unification going on, because sometimes the boxes would be different with older CSM releases. And also in terms of that, the benefit of getting the US release is also the English instruction manual, as the Japanese release came with a Japanese instruction manual. This one also has Korean. So it's a multifaceted instruction book. As you can see here, we've got all of the cards that are listed, including the Rekka Daizanto attack ride card, which is the one that was up for debate due to it being from Samurai Sentai Shinkenger in the crossover episode of Decade where they crossed over with Shinkenger. And it does mention in the booklet here, the attack ride Televikun has a Kamen Rider card design. That is because the Televikun magazine apparently has a lockdown on like everything related to their specials. So they had to change it to a Kamen Ride to get around that, but it still makes the attack ride sound. And then the other thing, it says attack ride Rekka Daizanto and attack ride Dekka Daizanto blank are not included in sets sold in certain areas. Still not exactly sure what certain areas those are. But the nice part with having the English manuals is it tells you how to activate all the stuff. So hopefully I don't miss anything in the process. But enough about the box, let's get to the actual driver. Due to Complete Selection Modification being the adult collector line, the belt is designed with adults in mind. So while we do have, of course, the plastic part of it, the inside has a nylon strap. And this is a pretty effective design overall. You can adjust this. You just adjust this clip to make it longer or shorter. It even, you know, it does pull through. So if you really need to make it that much longer, you can. And that's pretty nice because for, you know, I think most adults in Japan won't have a trouble with it. Those internationally, it's going to depend just on person to person. For me, this works without any modification, but also if you wanted to modify it, give it a longer strap, it shouldn't be too hard. The cool part here is you just clip these two sides together, and then you get this nice little Velcro piece that goes on top of it to kind of cover up the middle part. And you got your nice, you know, adult size belt for your driver. Now, in terms of other contents, of course, we have the Decadriver itself. Like I said, I will talk about the comparisons and the differences between this and the CSM 1.0 in a different video, just to make sure this doesn't get too long. And here are the 125 cards. It's really easy to know if you got the Rekka Daizanto card in your US release or not, because these are the top 2 cards, presumably so they could swap out in the factory when these are all packed in plastic. But the order of the cards, for those curious, is the Rekka cards, all the Kamen Ride cards, the Final Form Ride cards, the Kamen Rider cards for the Showa riders, then the blank cards, then the form ride cards that were used in the show, then the attack ride cards used in the show, and then it goes through all the attack rides, and then the final form rides, and then the blank final form rides, and then the final attack rides, and then, you know, if you got the K-Touch bundle, you get the K-Touch cards at the bottom. So all that is included. Quite a few cards, so we're going to get to it. Of note, I'm going to be using this Daiza to hold the belt. This is an actual product Bandai sells for belt displays. These doesn't include with it, but it was like 40 bucks, I think. They're not too badly priced, and I recommend it if you're actually displaying a complete selection, or if you're doing reviews like I am. All right, so here's the complete selection modification, Decadriver version 2. So this thing is pretty amazing. It actually has a lot more sound effects than I ever anticipated. Now, in terms of turning it on, it's going to work just like it always has since the beginning. But with a little change. On the old deluxe ones and even the CSM one, you could turn it on from the bottom. This one's going to turn it on from the back, and that's because there's now 2 buttons down here. So turning it on will get you the wonderful startup sound. And that is the startup sound that we've pretty much always heard from the Decadriver, so it should be pretty familiar to those familiar with the series. Now, there is a secondary mode, which is if you hold down the dialogue button and turn it on, you get that sound. And so now when certain cards are played, there'll be extra sound effects. And for me, I've decided I'm just going to leave it in dialogue mode so we get those extra sound effects without having to remember which cards actually activate them, because not all the cards do. And those will typically just be voice lines. So now that we got the driver powered on, there's a couple different things. So we got this button under here, which will activate music tracks. So those are the different music tracks with a quick sampling. I don't want to play the full versions for copyright and also for length. The songs Journey Through the Decade, Ride the Wind, and Treasure Sniper are actually the short form versions you'd hear in the TV show, and it's honestly pretty cool. Now, if you hold down one of these buttons, you get that sound for the music, and now the music will play when you use a card. And it'll turn off when you push the button. So pretty cool. Now, with the voice lines, you do have a button down here, and there is 199 voice lines. So if you want to hear all of them, I'll be posting an unlisted video link in the description where you can hear all the sounds. That way we're not spending time, but for example, so now when we go to do the henshin, we're going to open up the driver, hold down this button to get the sound of Decade's belt appearing. And now we can do the henshin using the Kamen Rider Decade card. And then if you want to do the untransformation sound, you hold down the dialogue button with the card still inserted. Now, there is a bonus mode. And this mode is kind of tricky to pull off, so we're going to try to do it on camera. But basically, you hold down the dialogue button until you get the sound of Momotaros from Kamen Rider Den-O. So that way we can do a henshin based on the time Momotaros possessed Decade. And if you push the button, you get the henshin sound from Momotaros. Okay, so that's the basic functions of the driver without specifics on cards. So let's start rolling through the cards. I'm going to go through these pretty quick unless there's something notable to say about them. So yeah, we're going to start with Common Ride, then we'll do Form Ride, Attack Ride, Final Form Ride, and Final Attack Ride. Now there is a series of blank cards from a blank blank to a blank Kuga to a blank Agito, Ryuki, Faiz, Blade, Hibiki, Kabuto, Deno, Kiva, and Skull, and these all make the same sound, which is basically nothing. Next up are the Form Ride cards for alternate forms of the Kamen Riders. So moving on to the attack rides, there are two cards which the instruction manual specifically mentions there are no sound effects for, that being slash and blast. That's because the slash and blast sounds are going to be within the CSM Ride Booker, which is a separate release that is coming later that I will do a video on when it comes out. But these two cards don't have their sound effects. That's not a mistake. That is because it's supposed to work with the CSM Ride Booker. Probably my favorite voice change was for the Ongekibo Rekka, because it just didn't sound right in the first one, and this one makes me very happy. And here is the attack ride Televikun, marked as a common ride for legal reasons, but this is actually a brand new card for this release. And here is the infamous Shinkindra crossover card, the Rekka Daizanto. And then 3 more blanks of the Rekka Daizanto, Auto Virgin, and Gaga no Udewa that do nothing. Next up are the final form ride cards, where Decade would mutate one of his fellow riders into some weird object. Now, much like before, there is two Den-O final form rides, being the Den liner, the proposed, and the Momotaro's, the actual, but you may notice the barcodes are different. I've waited years for that sound to be properly done. There also is, of course, blank cards for the final form rides for the different riders. Now for Final Attack Ride, all these cards act like they should, and they will play specific sounds to Decade, but a bunch of them can be modified with card combos, so what we're going to do here is do the normal versions, and then we'll do the card combo versions. Now this one is special for those that know the show, and here we go. And then here's a crazy card, the Final Kamen Attack Form Ride. There's also a blank Final Attack Ride card that also does nothing, but is nice to have. So I mentioned card combos, and basically if you use Slash, and then the Final Attack Ride Decade, and then you use Blast, and then Final Attack Ride Decade, you get different versions of his Final Attack Ride. Now, if you use one of the main Heisei riders and then their Final Attack Ride, you're going to get the original attacks, not the Decade with that rider attack, and it's actually really awesome. So that's all the cards that are included with the Decadriver on its own. And I did forget to mention the cards are plastic, like a really flexible plastic. This has been a given for so long with the Decade stuff between the original CSM and the DX Neo versions that I haven't mentioned this, but they are plastic. So in case you're wondering, they are not cardboard. They're a very flexible plastic, and I love them. Perfect way to do cards for a belt like this. Now, of course, it's not the only thing that came in this bundle. Let's talk about the K-Touch. So here we have the K-Touch. Now we'll compare this to the deluxe one in the comparison video, but this is the first time a complete selection modification K-Touch has come to exist, as there wasn't one with the original Decadriver. So this is pretty nice to have. It is a slightly different mold, that I will say, and it actually has a neat little feature, which is that this screen is heat sensitive instead of just pressure sensitive, which means you can actually do some cool stuff, and I'll show it in a bit. One thing is that scratches and there's scratches that were under the little plastic sheet. This thing is going to just kind of be a nightmare in terms of like keeping it super clean because of that glossy black. Now on the back here we do have the power switch, which is no longer on the bottom but on the back. And included with this are 3 different cards. So this is to activate Decade's final form. So we got the writer code card. We've got the dial card, since this thing's supposed to look like a cell phone. And then we got this cool blank card. The blank card is just that. It's a blank. But if you push something, you can hear the sounds because it's, again, heat reactive. But you can't see anything because this thing is not transparent like the other cards are transparent. So it's cool to have because I think as a display piece, it certainly looks a lot better with all the fingerprints on it. But you can't tell anything you're doing, and it's not meant to do that. It's just supposed to block off the little light sensors. So there's that. Now, of course, you have multiple functions. So let's talk about the non-henshin one, which is this dial card. This dial card, on the original toy, it wasn't much. On this one, you can get sound effects for different characters, such as Narutaki or Tsukasa, by punching in codes, which luckily the instruction book lists all of them. And there is 13 different versions of Narutaki saying, "Onore Decado," which is like the most famous line. So basically you can type in a number for a Kamen Rider season, and Tsukasa will tell you something about that show. Okay, so basically, there's a ton of voices, and much like with the Decadriver, I don't want to go through all of them in the main video, so there will be an unlisted video separate from the phrases of the Decadriver going through all the codes to get all the phrases. And at any time, you can press this, and it resets your keypad. But this is pretty cool because you get a ton more voice phrases, especially from Narutaki, who's one of the more iconic characters from the show. Now, of course, the thing that we mostly want to do with this is make Decade complete form. So with the pad, you can do it like you did in the original toy, which was push each button one at a time, like that sort of thing. And that's the cancel button. But with this being heat reactive, it means you can actually do what Tsukasa started doing later in the show, which was and that's pretty awesome because I love being able to just kind of swipe around. Also, you don't have to do them in order. You can just be like all... You get the idea. So in terms of the henshin, in the old toy, putting it on the belt would do nothing. On this, it has a special feature, which we'll look at in a moment. But let's look at the other main function, which is summoning the final forms of each Kamen Rider, also known as how we know who the final form is. The K-Touch 21 says O's final form is Puto Tira, and we're sticking to it. Now, much like the original Deluxe K-Touch, you do get this little side piece, which will attach the center of this driver to the side. And this is basically just a piece of Velcro, which is nice and neat. So you can get this on your belt pretty nice and easy. Keeping it on the side here, as it should be, like that. And then to get your driver ready, pull this off, and we'll put this on the side. And there is actually some slightly different functionality with that we'll look at in a moment. But let's pull this like this, just so we can get everything sort of in frame, so that way we can see it all. And then, yeah, we're going to take the K-Touch and do the henshin one more time. Now, you saw me kind of rush to put this on here. If you don't put it on during the transformation, it'll actually do a different sequence. Now, in the final Decade movie, the Movie War 2010 portion, Decade final chapter, Decade was able to form complete form and then power up the other 9 Heisei riders in order to go to their strongest forms. Now, there has never been a proper sound effect for it. The way you do it on this one is you attach it while you're not doing anything else with the K-Touch. So that's pretty amazing. Now, what the other cool part is, they've redesigned this. So on the original Deluxe toy, if you wanted to use a card while it's on the side thing, you had to hold it down the entire time of the sound. Now you only have to press it once, but there's some cards that make some different sounds. So while you can do the normal stuff that you would expect from, with the cards, that any card can go in, most make the same sound they normally would. Emphasis on most. Now, in terms of just working this side piece, you can always do the combinations with the belt itself. And so which cards are different, you're probably wondering. Well, it's going to be your main final attack rides, namely the 10 Heisei Rider cards. These are all going to make different attack sounds. They're really robust on these cards. And then the other ones that are going to be different is Rekka Daizanto and Televikun, as those were used with complete form exclusively. So let's do these first. Okay, now for the final attack rides. So we're going to start with Decade. And that's everything this does in the base package. So overall, this bundle was $330 US. Now that is a chunk of money, but I do feel like it's worth it. You do get a ton of sounds between the K-Touch, the driver, all the voice dialogues, all the music, all the special sounds with 125 cards. It's pretty great, actually. It's a pretty good deal. On top of that, if you get things like the card set extra that we'll look at in the next video, you get even more sounds out of it, and that's also pretty cool. Now, that is a large amount of money, and not everybody's going to be able to afford that, but if it's something you want, and you're wondering, is it worth it? Absolutely, in my opinion. I don't feel like I wasted any money. In fact, I feel like I got more than I was looking for. All the extra final attack ride sounds is something that's really, really cool. And yeah, there's just so many voice clips and dialogue clips and all these music clips. There's so much you can do with this beyond just what I showed. I mostly was just demoing all the sounds. But there are different combinations. You can play the music, you can play the voice effects. There's all kinds of stuff within this. Anyways, I really love Kamen Decade, and I love his driver, and I really love this release. So pick it up if you can, because it's definitely worth the money. Now, like I said, this is not the only Decade video. Stay tuned, as we will be doing a card set extra review, and then a comparison, and then the ride booker later on. I'm looking forward to reviewing all of those, and I hope you will stay tuned for that. So hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, tell me you liked the video, leave a comment down below, and tell me what is your most surprising feature out of this. Like, what was the thing that caught you off guard? Because there was stuff in here I didn't even know it did prior to getting it, and that's pretty exciting. Also, be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for Kamen news and more. And my awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. Till next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.